It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. The Executive Chief of the National Election Authority says that the vote counting ends in the House of Representatives election runoffs. Foreign Minister Bethha says that Egypt cherishes the strategic partnership with Russia. And the Minister of Defense meets the Congolese and the Somali counterparts on the EDX 2025 sidelines. Executive Chief of the National Election Authority, Councillor Ahmed Binderi, said that the vote counting completed for the House of Representatives first phase's runoffs for the candidates running on the individual seats. A rerun round was held last week in 19 constituencies across 7 governorates, whose results have been annulled in the parliamentary election's first phase. In exclusive remarks to the Middle East news agency, Binderi said that the authority started receiving minutes on the final counting numbers to be revised and scrutinized. Minister of Foreign Affairs Bethha heads for Qatar, where he takes part in the 2-day Doha Business Forum due to kick off on Saturday. Egypt's top diplomat will also be holding a series of meetings with the participants in the forum on boosting bilateral cooperation, along with enhancing political coordination on the most prominent regional and international issues. Minister of Foreign Affairs Bethha said that Egypt cherishes the strategic partnership with Russia. Abdulati made the remarks in a phone call with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on boosting all-round cooperation, especially in the economic field. The two sides agreed on the continued coordination on the completion of joint cooperation projects, the forefront of which is Daba nuclear station and the expansion of the mutual investments. The meeting also touched on the latest regional developments, with the Egyptian top diplomat stressing the importance of implementing the United Nations Security Council Resolution number 2803 on Gaza. Egypt welcomed the signing of the Peace and Prosperity Accords in Washington between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. Egypt described the accords as a landmark step toward ending tensions and strengthening security and stability in the Great Lakes region, while supporting reconciliation and enabling the comprehensive development. In a statement, Egypt noted that the accords mark an important milestone, offering renewed hope for the stability and development in the region. Egypt reaffirmed the full support for all the initiatives aimed at consolidating security and stability in the Great Lakes region, strengthening the good neighborly relations, and ensuring the effective implementation and sustainability of the accords. The General Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of Defense and Military Production, General Abdelmajid Sakr, held a number of meetings with the senior African officials on the sidelines of the 4th edition of Egypt's International Defense and Military Industries Expo 2025 for EDX. Sakr held 2 separate meetings with the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Guy Kabambo, and the Somali Defense Minister Ahmed Muallim Fiqi. The meetings touched on the issues of mutual concern, in addition to means of boosting bilateral cooperation in different military fields. First Lady Mrs. Intisar Assisi said that the volunteers are the real force that shape, hope, and build a more humanitarian and merciful nation. Posting on the social media accounts marking the World Day for Volunteering, the First Lady extended gratitude to all those who made giving their lifestyle. Mrs. Intisar Assisi thanked every volunteering man and woman, saying that they chose to be a light, in the lives of others. The Israeli occupation army continued sporadic shelling of the Gaza Strip and demolished more residential buildings near the yellow line that demarcates the area of control under the first phase of the ceasefire. Intensive Israeli air raids and artillery are battering the southern Gaza city of Rafah, while the Israeli military boats fired towards the coast of the Khan Yunis city. Since the October ceasefire began, Israeli violations led to the killing of over 370 Palestinians and the injury of 950 others, most of them women, children, and elderly people. At the West Bank, a Palestinian man was killed after being shot by the Israeli occupation forces during a raid in a town south of the Nablus city. The Palestinian Health Ministry said that Bethha Abdulrahman Rashid was martyred after receiving shots at his head in the Udula town during the Israeli raid. Palestinian Wafa news agency said that the Israeli forces raided the center of the village and fired live shots and toxic gas and stun bombs as the worshippers were departing the town's mosque following the prayers. Assaults by the Israeli settlers against the Palestinians in the occupied West Bank continued as several settlers beat the peasants who were working in the agricultural lands in the village east of Tubas. The settlers also carried out the acts of sabotage in the land as the olive plantation season began. The UN's humanitarian agency, the OCHA, reported in October that some 3,200 Palestinians from dozens of Bedouin and herding communities have been forced from their homes by the settler violence and the movement restrictions, notably since the Gaza war began in 2023. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun said that the ceasefire talks with Israel are primarily aimed at stopping the Israeli hostilities on the Lebanese territory. Aoun said in a statement referring to the UN mapped line that separates Israel from Lebanon that these negotiations are mainly aimed at stopping the hostile actions carried out by Israel on the Lebanese territory, securing the return of the captives, scheduling the withdrawal from the occupied areas, and resolving the disputed points along the Blue Line. He also told the visiting UN Security Council delegation that Lebanon welcomes any country willing to keep forces in the south to support the army after the UNIFIL withdraws at the end of 2026. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency said that the vessel, located 15 nautical miles west of Yemen, reported an exchange of fire after sighting about 15 small craft. The vessel said that the craft later left the area and that it remains on high alert. The ship's master reported the crew was safe and that it is continuing to its next port of call. The Kremlin said that Russia and the United States were making progress in peace talks on Ukraine and that Moscow is ready to continue working with the current U.S. team. President Vladimir Putin held 5 hours of talks with the two U.S. envoys, at which the Kremlin has said he accepted some elements, but not others, of the U.S. drafted peace plan. Putin subsequently restated the Russian demand for full control over Ukraine's Donbass region, saying Moscow would take the region by force unless the Ukrainian troops withdrew. French President Emmanuel Macron said that the unity between Europe and the United States was key in the support of Ukraine. During a visit to China, Macron added that the unity between the Americans and the Europeans on the Ukrainian issue is essential. He also highlighted that they welcome and support the peace efforts being made by the United States of America. Macron also called for the increased pressure on the Russian economy after its war in Ukraine. Russian drone struck a house in central Ukraine, killing a 12-year-old boy, while the Ukrainian strikes reportedly targeted a Russian port and an oil refinery as the U.S. peace efforts continued out of the public view. In Ukraine's central Dnipropetrovsk region, a Russian drone attack night destroyed a house, where the boy was killed and 2 women were injured. The Ukrainian Air Force said that Russia fired 137 drones of various types during the night. Officials said that the Ukrainian drones attacked a port in Russia's Krasnodar region on the border with Ukraine. The attack sparked a fire at the Tamryok seaport and damaged the port infrastructure. Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to expand and diversify the trade beyond oil and defense, despite the Western pressure on New Delhi to scale back the close ties with Moscow. Russia has said that it wants to import more Indian goods in an effort to grow trade to $100 billion by 2030. Putin said that Russia would continue to ensure the uninterrupted fuel supplies to India, signaling a defined stance in the face of the American sanctions, and also flagged the project underway to build the India's largest nuclear power plant. The U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that the U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is planning to expand the number of countries covered by its travel ban from 19 to more than 30. The details follow.
American President Donald Trump's administration cut to 18 months from 5 years the period of time work permits are valid for refugees, asylum seekers, and other migrants. The move, the latest in the administration's sweeping immigration crackdown, took place just 2 days after it halted immigration applications for citizens from 19 nations. The move also came after 2 National Guard members were allegedly shot last week by an Afghan man who entered the United States as part of a resettlement program following the American military withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Joseph Edlow, director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, cited the November 26th shooting in the U.S. Capitol as a reason for the work permit move. He said that the work permit move will apply to migrants admitted as refugees, migrants granted asylum, and those whose deportation has been put on hold. On Tuesday, the Trump administration halted immigration applications for citizens from 19 nations already subject to travel restrictions. Green card and citizenship processing was halted for people from those countries, which include Afghanistan, Yemen, Haiti, Venezuela, Sudan, and Somalia. Trump campaigned for the White House on a pledge to deport millions of undocumented migrants, and after the National Guard shooting, he said that he planned to permanently pause migration from all third world countries.
A strike on an alleged drug trafficking boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean killed 4 people amid a growing controversy over a campaign that has taken more than 87 lives. The U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and President Donald Trump's administration have especially come under fire over an incident in early September in which the U.S. forces targeted the wreckage of a vessel that had already been hit, killing 2 survivors. The latest strike targeted a vessel in the international waters operated by the designated terrorist organization. Heavy rains triggered the fresh landslide warnings in Sri Lanka's worst affected central hills as the death toll from last week's cyclone Dutwa neared 500. The National Building Research Organization, which monitors the stability of mountain slopes, said heavy rainfall within 24 hours could further saturate the hills and make them unstable. The NBRO said in a statement that since the rainfall within the past 24 hours has exceeded 150 millimeters, if the rains continue, evacuate to a safe location to avoid the risk of the landslides. The Disaster Management Center said 486 people have been confirmed dead and another 341 were still unaccounted for. Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Mashot, received the Vice President of the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, Yuko Mitsui, on the first visit to Egypt. The meeting focused on means to enhance the future cooperation in light of the long-term strategic partnership binding Egypt and Japan, which witnessed remarkable progress in the economic and the cultural aspects. Al-Mashot expressed high appreciation to the Japanese government for its key role in supporting Egypt in implementing the Grand Egyptian Museum, one of the most prominent cultural projects in Africa and the Middle East. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.